All right, so factoring, in this case, we're going to do quadratics, so 3 terms, and it's when we start with a negative lead coefficient. So anytime we factor, we always want to start with a GCF. Say, can I cancel anything, divide anything out of every single term? And if things start with a negative, we really want to pull out the negative because positive numbers are easier to work with. I don't like starting with a negative. So anytime I look at a problem, the first thing I say is, ooh, I have to factor this. What can I pull out of every single term? If I'm starting with a negative, I definitely want to pull out that negative. So I'm going to take out a negative to start with. And I'm looking at all of my terms. There's no W for that 16, so I can't take a W out of all the terms. I'm looking at the coefficients. That first one is a 1, which means I'm not going to be able to divide anything out other than -1, so we're going to pull that out first. So write your GCF, -1, and then we're going to have W squared. All of the signs are going to change, so minus 6W minus 16. And then we're going to say, ooh, can I factor that trinomial? This is one of those nice ones where my lead coefficient is 1. I'm going to look at my factors of 16. So -16 that are going to subtract. So I can think of this. I need to get to a -16. That is the factors. So multiplying to get a -16. And then I'm going to subtract and get to a 6, if at all possible. My factors of 16 are 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. And that's all of them because I have a 4 in both columns. And I need to subtract, and I need to get a positive 6. So if I go 8 minus 2, I have a positive 6. I'm going to rewrite my problem, the parenthesis stuff. So I have W squared plus 8W minus 2W, if I wanted to do it by grouping, minus 16. And I have the -1. Or I can know that this was a nice one. So the nice ones, we can always put the 2 parentheses. So I have my -1 hanging out. 2 parentheses. I have the W in each parenthesis, and then I'm just going to put those factors that subtracted to that 6. So plus 8 minus 2, and I've got it down to 1 term. It is completely factored. I just have that -1 as a GCF. All right, so that was a nice one to factor with the trinomials. With that lead coefficient of 1. The next problem that we're looking at with this, I still have a leading with a negative, so I'm going to take out that negative to start with. Look to see if there's anything else I can pull out for that GCF. I have a 2, a 3, and a 9. Nothing goes into both of those because 9 is not even. They don't have V's, so I can actually only take out that -1 again here. And that will leave me with -1 parenthesis 2V squared plus 3V minus 9. All right, so then we're going to check the trinomial to see if I can factor any more. And this is where I have to take that first and the last terms. So 2V squared times -9 gives me a -18 V squared. Let's list my factors. So if I'm looking at this, I need to get to a -18 is my product, and my middle term is a 3. So they're going to subtract to get me to 3. Looking at what we have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, 4 doesn't go into 18, 5 doesn't go into 18, and I'm back to 6. So those are all my factors. If I need to get to a 3, I can do 6 minus 3 equals 3. This one's not a nice quadratic, so my lead coefficient is not 1, so that means I'm going to rewrite it. So I've got my -1 hanging out, 2V squared plus 6V. I'm going to replace this 3V squared with the 6V and minus 3V, and then minus 9. So factors switched. And now I can factor it by grouping the 2 terms at a time. If I want, I could go, I'm looking at these 2 and these 2. So I can take out a 2V, and I can take out a -3. Remember, if it's starting out with a negative, I want to start with that. So I have a -1 hanging out for my answer. And then my first set of parentheses is 2v with a v plus 3, factoring out a negative 3, a v plus 3. It's looking terrible. I've got too many parentheses with this. So I've got the negative 1 hanging out. The GCF of these two, I'm pulling out a v plus 3, v plus 3. So I'm pulling that out. So I'm going to write that first. And then 2v minus 3, that is the whole polynomial factored out. If I didn't want to do it with that grouping because of those extra parentheses, I could remember that I have the negative 1, so I know I need a negative 1 in my answer. I'm going to put the 4 term that I had right here is going to go into the box. I'm going to do it in pink. So I have the first term is always first, 2v squared. The last term is always here. The middle two you can put either way. I'm going to do the 6v and the minus 3v. Remember, we're doing GCFs in each direction, so we're going to do GCF up. 2v squared and the 3v is a v. 6v and a negative 9 is a positive 3. Going the first row between 2v squared and 6v is 2v. Between negative 3v and negative 9 is a minus 3. So that will give me 2v minus 3 and a v plus 3. The parentheses are the same as what I had the other way. It's just a matter of which way you want to factor that trinomial. Remember, we're going to make it into the 4 terms by looking at what will multiply to negative 18 and add or subtract, because it's a negative, to that 3.